At my sister's luxury wedding reception, she grabbed the champagne-filled microphone and said with a bright smile, "Unlike my sister Carol who scrubs toilets at the Grandview Hotel for minimum wage, I actually found a man who values ambition and success." The ballroom full of Manhattan's elite burst into laughter. My mother, seated at the head table in her designer gown, raised her glass and added, "Well, someone has to clean up after successful people, darling. At least Carol found her calling." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The laughter grew louder, echoing off the crystal chandeliers. Then the groom's father, billionaire tech mogul Spencer Hartford, stood up from his table, walked directly to the microphone, took it from my sister's hand, and said 6 words that made 300 guests fall into absolute silence. "That woman saved my life once." The parking attendant looked at my 14-year-old Toyota Camry like I'd just driven up in a garbage truck. Behind me, a line of Mercedes, Teslas, and one actual Rolls-Royce waited under the ornate entrance of the plaza. I'd spent 40 minutes in traffic getting here from Queens, my hands sweating on the steering wheel the entire time, rehearsing what I'd say if anyone asked about my life. "Name for the valet?" the attendant asked, his eyes already dismissing me. "Carol Reed. I'm with the wedding party." His eyebrows went up slightly. "Sure you are," his expression said. But he took my keys anyway, probably wondering how someone like me was connected to an event like this. I smoothed down the front of my navy dress, the nicest thing I owned, bought on sale at Macy's 3 years ago. I'd worn it to my supervisor's retirement party, to my neighbor's funeral, and now to my sister Annalise's wedding to Jonathan Hartford, heir to a tech fortune I couldn't even comprehend. The dress was fine. Clean, pressed, appropriate. But standing here looking at women emerging from town cars in gowns that probably cost more than my monthly rent, my stomach twisted into knots. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor. "Don't let them make you feel small. You're worth 10 of them." I smiled despite my nerves. Mrs. Chen had insisted on lending me her good shoes, black pumps that actually fit, unlike the worn ones I usually wore to work. She'd helped me with my makeup too, her gnarled fingers surprisingly steady as she applied eyeliner. "Remember," she'd said, "you work harder in one day than most of those people work in a month. That means something." I wished I believed her. The plaza's entrance was exactly as overwhelming as I'd feared. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, arrangements of white roses and orchids that were taller than me, and a string quartet playing something classical that everyone seemed to recognize except me. Women in designer dresses air-kissed each other while men in custom suits discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes in the Hamptons. Every eye seemed to be on me as I walked through the lobby. Or maybe I was so invisible to these people that they looked right through me. I wasn't sure which was worse. "Carol." My mother's voice cut through the elegant murmur of conversation. Margaret Reed, born Margaret Maynard, swept toward me in an emerald gown that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. She'd always had expensive taste, even when we were growing up in our modest house in Connecticut. She'd married up with my father, a successful investment banker, and she'd never let anyone forget it. "You made it," she said, embracing me briefly. Her perfume was overwhelming, Chanel, probably. The kind that came in the black bottles I'd dust when I cleaned the luxury suites at the Grandview. "And you look nice." "Is that the same dress from Aunt Judith's funeral?" "Different dress," I lied, my face burning. "Well, you look lovely," she said in that tone that actually meant the opposite. "Annalise will be so glad you came. She's in the bridal suite getting final photos done. You should go up and see her before the ceremony." "I don't want to interrupt." "Nonsense. You're her sister." 3rd floor, the Empire Suite. She was already turning away, her attention caught by someone more important. "Oh, Senator Williams. How wonderful to see you." I stood there for a moment, invisible again, before making my way to the elevators. The Empire Suite was chaos wrapped in white silk and tulle. Annalise sat in the center of it all like a queen holding court, her wedding dress a masterpiece of lace and crystals that probably cost more than a car. A photographer circled her like a satellite, his camera clicking constantly. 3 bridesmaids in matching blush pink dresses fussed over the train of her gown. My sister had always been beautiful, but today she was something else entirely. Flawless makeup, hair styled in elaborate curls, skin glowing with whatever expensive treatments wealthy brides got before their weddings. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Like she belonged in this world of luxury and excess. I'd never belonged here. Even as kids, Annalise had been the golden child, straight A's, captain of the debate team, full scholarship to Yale. I'd been the one who barely graduated high school, who went straight to work instead of college, who cleaned hotel rooms while my sister collected degrees and connections. Carol. Annalise spotted me and waved me over. You're here. Come, let Marcus get a photo of us together. I walked toward her, hyper-aware of my department store dress and borrowed shoes. The bridesmaids stepped back to make room, their gazes sweeping over me in that quick, assessing way that women do. One of them, a tall blonde I didn't recognize, whispered something to the girl next to her. They both smiled. You look absolutely beautiful, I said to Annalise, meaning it. Thank you. Vera Wong, custom designed. It took 6 months and 4 fittings, but it was worth it. She stood, the dress cascading around her like a waterfall of ivory silk. And you look like you've been working hard. Are those circles under your eyes? The photographer's camera clicked, capturing my embarrassment for posterity. I had the overnight shift yesterday, I said quietly. Didn't get much sleep. Still at that hotel? One of the bridesmaids, the blonde, asked with exaggerated sympathy. That must be so exhausting. It pays the bills, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Barely, I'd imagine, another bridesmaid added. I read that housekeepers make, what, $12 an hour? $13.50, I corrected, then immediately regretted it. Why was I defending my poverty to these women? Well, Annalise said brightly, at least you have a job. That's something. Now, we should probably head down for the ceremony. Carol, you're seated in the 3rd row, left side. Mom arranged it. 3rd row. Close enough to show I was family, far enough back to show I didn't really matter. I nodded and made my escape, the sound of their laughter following me out into the hallway. The truth was, I hadn't just worked the overnight shift yesterday. I'd worked a double because Rosa called in sick and we were short-staffed. 16 hours of changing sheets, scrubbing bathrooms, vacuuming carpets, and restocking minibars. My feet had ached so badly by the end that I'd soaked them in Epsom salt for an hour when I finally got home at 7 in the morning. Then I'd slept for exactly 4 hours before my alarm went off, reminding me I needed to get ready for the wedding. I'd stood in my tiny apartment in Queens, staring at my closet with its 5 hangers of work clothes and 3 nice outfits. This was my life. A studio apartment above a bodega, the smell of frying plantains seeping through the floorboards, the sound of the subway rumbling past every 7 minutes. My bed was a pull-out sofa. My kitchen was 4 feet of counter space. My bathroom had a crack in the ceiling that my landlord kept promising to fix. But it was mine. I paid for it with my own money, earned through work that left my back aching and my hands raw from cleaning chemicals. Mrs. Chen had knocked on my door at noon, right when I needed her most. She always knew. That was our relationship. She lived next door for 3 years, ever since her husband died, and somewhere along the way we'd become family. The kind you choose, not the kind you're born into. I'd shown her the navy dress, and she'd nodded approvingly. Simple. Elegant. You'll look beautiful. I'll look like exactly what I am, I'd said, my voice cracking slightly. The poor sister who couldn't make anything of herself. Mrs. Chen had gripped my chin, forcing me to meet her gaze. You get up every morning at 5 a.m. You work hard at an honest job. You pay your bills. You help your neighbors. You volunteer at the soup kitchen on Sundays. That's making something of yourself, Carol Reed. Don't let anyone tell you different. But now, standing in the plaza's ornate hallway outside the Empire Suite, her words seemed to slip away like water through my fingers. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I made my way back down to the main floor, following the elegant signs directing guests to the ceremony space. The grand ballroom had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, each one decorated with sprays of orchids and silk ribbons. An aisle runner made of actual rose petals led to an altar that looked like it belonged in a cathedral, towering arrangements of white flowers, candles in crystal holders, and a backdrop of flowing white fabric that caught the light from the chandeliers. I found my seat in the third row, left side, and sat down carefully. The woman next to me glanced over, gave me a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes, then returned to her conversation with her husband about their daughter's acceptance to Princeton. I pulled out my phone, more for something to do with my hands than anything else. A text from my coworker Destiny. How's the fancy wedding? Are you feeling like Cinderella yet? Dress sparkles. I typed back, more like one of the mice that got left behind when the magic wore off. Her response came immediately, screw that. You're the fairy godmother who actually does all the work while everyone else takes credit. Hold your head up, girl. I smiled despite myself. Destiny understood. She'd been working at the Grandview for 12 years, raising 3 kids on her own, taking night classes to get her GED. We'd bonded over shared late-night shifts and the particular exhaustion that comes from serving people who don't see you as fully human. The ceremony space was filling up now. Women in gowns that cost more than my yearly salary. Men in suits that were tailored to perfection. Everyone looked comfortable here, like they'd been born knowing how to navigate spaces like this. How to make small talk about vacation homes and charity galas. How to hold a champagne flute and laugh at jokes that weren't funny. I'd never learned those skills. I'd learned how to remove red wine stains from white linens. How to make a bed with hospital corners. How to clean a bathroom so thoroughly that it sparkled like new. How to be invisible while working in a room where wealthy people were sleeping, or arguing, or doing things they didn't want anyone to know about. The Grandview Hotel was one of the finest in Manhattan. 5 stars, luxury suites, celebrity guests, politicians, CEOs. I'd been working there for 9 years, ever since I turned 22 and realized retail jobs weren't going to pay my rent. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. It was necessary. And on good days, it was even satisfying. But my family had never understood that. To them, I was the disappointment. The one who hadn't gone to college. The one who worked with her hands instead of her mind. The one who would never make them proud. The string quartet began playing something soft and classical, signaling that the ceremony was about to start. Ushers in crisp tuxedos guided the last few guests to their seats. I watched as people I didn't recognize filled the rows in front of me, Annalise's college friends, Jonathan's business associates, family friends who'd known my sister during her years at Yale and Harvard Law. I recognized exactly 3 people in this room besides my immediate family, my Aunt Judith, who gave me a little wave from 2 rows up, my cousin Rebecca, who pretended not to see me, and my father's brother Uncle George, who'd always been kind to me but was currently deep in conversation with someone who looked important. Everyone else was a stranger. This was Annalise's world now. A world of country clubs and charity benefits, of summer homes and private schools, of casual conversations about things I'd only ever read about in the magazines I'd flipped through during lunch breaks. The woman next to me was now discussing her recent trip to the Amalfi Coast with her husband. The villa was divine, absolutely divine. Right on the cliffs overlooking the water. We simply must go back next summer. I'd never left the country. I'd barely left New York except for one trip to Florida when I was 12, before my parents' priorities shifted entirely to funding Annalise's private school education. The music shifted, and everyone stood. The bridesmaids began their processional down the rose-petal aisle, each one looking like they'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. They moved with confidence that came from always being in rooms like this, always being the ones who belonged. Then came Annalise. Even with all my complicated feelings about my sister, I had to admit she looked absolutely stunning. Her dress caught the light from the chandeliers, making her look like she was glowing from within. My father walked beside her, pride radiating from every step. He'd never looked at me that way. Not once. The ceremony itself was beautiful in that generic way that expensive weddings always are. Some officiant talked about love and commitment. Annalise and Jonathan exchanged vows they'd written themselves, full of inside jokes I didn't understand and references to their life together that I'd never been part of. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause. I clapped along with everyone else, disconnected from it all. Like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. The recessional music played, and Annalise and Jonathan swept back down the aisle as husband and wife, both of them beaming. The guests filed out after them, heading toward the cocktail hour in an adjacent room that I knew from the invitation would feature light hors d'oeuvres and premium open bar. The cocktail space was somehow even more intimidating than the ceremony room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the autumn leaves creating a painting of gold and red. Waiters in white jackets circulated with trays of champagne and canapés that were too beautiful to eat. A jazz trio played in the corner. Everything was elegant, expensive, and completely foreign to me. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter more to have something to hold than because I wanted it. The bubbles tickled my nose as I took a small sip. Carol. My mother appeared at my elbow, her face flushed with excitement and probably also champagne. Come, you need to meet the Hartford family. Jonathan's parents are wonderful people. Simply wonderful. Before I could protest, she was steering me through the crowd toward a small group standing near the windows. I recognized Jonathan immediately, now changed out of his ceremonial tuxedo jacket into something slightly less formal. Beside him stood a distinguished-looking couple in their 60s, his parents, obviously. Margaret, the woman said warmly, embracing my mother. What a beautiful ceremony. Your daughter is absolutely radiant. Thank you, Eleanor. This is my other daughter, Carol. My mother's hand on my back felt more like a push than a gesture of affection. Carol works in hospitality. There it was. The way she always introduced me, making my job sound more impressive than it was. Works in hospitality, instead of cleans hotel rooms. As if the vague phrasing would somehow hide the reality. How lovely, Eleanor Hartford said with a polite smile. Which hotel? The Grandview, I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. In Manhattan. Oh, the Grandview is exceptional, a male voice said. I turned to see an older man joining our group. He had silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and presence that made people naturally pay attention when he spoke. One of the finest hotels in the city. Carol, this is Spencer Hartford, my mother said, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before. Pure reverence. Jonathan's father. He founded Hartford Technologies. I knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Hartford Technologies was one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Spencer Hartford was worth billions. And I just told him I worked at a hotel. It's nice to meet you, I managed, extending my hand. His handshake was firm, professional. He studied my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. The Grandview, Spencer Hartford repeated, still looking at me with that unsettling intensity. What do you do there? My mother jumped in before I could answer. She's in guest services. Carol's been there for, what is it now, 9 years. Housekeeping, I corrected quietly, unable to keep up the pretense. I'm a housekeeper. I clean rooms. There was a beat of silence. Eleanor Hartford's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in her expression. My mother's hand tightened on my arm. How industrious, Eleanor said finally. It must be very hard work. It is, I said, lifting my chin slightly. But someone has to do it. Spencer Hartford was still staring at me, his face unreadable. Before anyone could say anything else, Annalise materialized beside us in a flurry of silk and lace, Jonathan trailing behind her. There you are, she said, though it wasn't clear who she was addressing. She kissed Eleanor on both cheeks, then turned to Spencer. "Mr. Hartford, thank you so much for making all of this possible. The venue, the flowers, everything, it's all more than I could have dreamed. Please, call me Spencer. And your family now, Annalise. Only the best for my son's wedding." He finally looked away from me, his attention shifting entirely to my sister. "You look absolutely beautiful." Annalise glowed under his praise. This was her element, being admired, being the center of attention, being told she was exceptional. She'd been collecting these moments her entire life like some people collected stamps. "Carol was just telling us about her work at the Grandview," my mother said, and I could hear the edge in her voice. The warning. "Don't embarrass us more than you already have." "Oh, Carol and her hotel job," Annalise said with a laugh that sounded affectionate but had sharp edges. "She's been there scrubbing away since forever. Very dedicated to the hospitality industry, my sister." The group laughed politely. My face burned. "Someone has to keep those luxury suites clean for guests like us," Jonathan added, smiling like he'd said something clever. "Carol, I have to say, every time I've stayed at the Grandview, the rooms are impeccable. You and your team do excellent work." He meant it kindly, I think. But it still felt like being patted on the head. "Good job, cleaning lady. Now run along while the important people talk." "Thank you," I said stiffly. "Actually," Annalise continued, linking her arm through Jonathan's, "Carol almost didn't make it today. She was working the overnight shift last night. Can you imagine? Working all night and then coming straight to a wedding. I told her she should have taken the day off, but you know Carol. Always so worried about money." "Well, rent doesn't pay itself," I said, trying to keep my voice light even though I wanted to disappear into the floor. "Still in that little apartment in Queens?" Annalise asked, her voice dripping with concern that wasn't really concern at all. "I keep telling her she should look for something better, but I suppose on a housekeeper's salary, options are limited." My mother laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, Annalise. Carol's doing the best she can with what she has. Not everyone can be a Yale graduate." The conversation continued around me, flowing past me like I was a rock in a stream. They discussed Jonathan's work at his father's company, Annalise's plans to join a prestigious law firm after their honeymoon in Bali, the Hartford family's charitable foundation, the new penthouse Jonathan had just purchased for them in Tribeca. I stood there, champagne glass in hand, shrinking smaller and smaller. This was what family gatherings had been like my entire life. Annalise at the center, brilliant and accomplished, while I lingered at the edges, the cautionary tale of what happens when you don't apply yourself. "Carol, darling, why don't you go mingle with some of the other guests?" my mother suggested, which was code for, "You're bringing down the mood, please leave." I excused myself and drifted away, relief and humiliation warring in my chest. I found a quiet corner near one of the massive floral arrangements and took a long sip of champagne, letting the bubbles distract me from the tightness in my throat. Through the crowd, I could see Annalise holding court with a group of her law school friends. She was animated, laughing, touching people's arms as she told some story that had everyone captivated. She'd always been like this, magnetic, effortlessly charming, someone who lit up a room just by walking into it. I'd never been that person. I was the one who cleaned up after the parties, not the one who threw them. A waiter passed by with a tray of what looked like tiny beef Wellingtons. I took one, grateful for something to do with my hands. It was delicious, probably made by some celebrity chef they'd hired for the occasion. At the Grandview, I'd sometimes find half-eaten room service meals left in the hallways, food that cost more than my dinner for a week, barely touched and thrown away. "Carol Reed?" A voice beside me made me turn. A woman about my age, dressed in a stunning red cocktail dress, was smiling at me. "Is that really you?" "It's Briar Manson. We went to high school together." I searched my memory and found her, Briar Kendall back then, before she got married apparently. She'd been in my English class, one of the nice girls who'd never been outright cruel but had never really been my friend either. "Briar, hi," I said, forcing a smile. Wow, it's been years. I know. I'm here with my husband, he works with Jonathan at Hartford Tech. She gestured toward a man in an expensive suit talking with a group near the bar. I heard through the grapevine that Annalise was your sister. Small world. So what have you been up to? Last I heard, you were working retail? I work at the Grandview Hotel now, I said, leaving out the specifics. Let her assume what she wanted. Oh, the Grandview. That's amazing. Are you in management? Events coordination? Housekeeping, I said, watching her expression shift. Oh. Well, that's great. Honest work, right? She took a sip of her champagne. I'm in marketing now. Just made VP at my firm, actually. It's exhausting but so rewarding. Congratulations, I said, meaning it even though it stung. Thanks. You know, if you're ever looking for a change, my company is always hiring. I mean, probably not in marketing without a degree, but I'm sure there are administrative positions or something. I could put in a word. The offer was meant kindly, I think. But it landed like a punch. Even my high school acquaintances pitied me. I appreciate that, I said. I'm good where I am for now. Well, the offer stands. She glanced over her shoulder. I should get back to my husband. It was great seeing you, Carol. Really great. She disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone again with my champagne and my thoughts. I checked my phone. Still 45 minutes until dinner service started. 45 more minutes of cocktail hour, of small talk and subtle condescension, of being an imposter in my own sister's wedding. Another text from Destiny, you still alive in there? Or did you get absorbed into the rich people hive mind? I smiled and typed back, still me. Barely. Send help. Or wine. Preferably both. Hang in there. Only a few more hours and then you can come back to the real world where people actually work for a living. I was about to put my phone away when my Aunt Judith appeared, her face flushed from champagne and probably also from navigating the social minefield of this event. Carol, sweetheart, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like Chardonnay and Estée Lauder. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I lied. You look lovely, dear. That dress is perfect on you. She lowered her voice. Don't let your mother get to you. Or Annalise. They just, well, they live in a different world, don't they? Aunt Judith had always been the one family member who treated me like I mattered. She'd married a dentist, lived comfortably but not extravagantly, and had always seemed to understand that not everyone measured success the same way. It's fine, I said. I'm happy for Annalise. Really? Of course you are. You're a good sister, even if she doesn't always deserve it. She squeezed my hand. Listen, I want you to meet someone. My friend Patricia's son is here, Benjamin Cole, though we call him Benji. He's a software engineer, very sweet, about your age. Single. I think you two might hit it off. Aunt Judith, I'm not really. Nonsense. Come on, he's right over there. Before I could protest further, she was dragging me across the room toward a man standing awkwardly near the past hors d'oeuvres table. He was tall, slightly rumpled despite his suit, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Benji, this is my niece Carol. Carol, this is Benjamin Cole. His mother and I went to college together. Hi, he said, extending his hand. Nice to meet you. Though, everyone just calls me Benji. You too, I said, shaking it. Aunt Judith beamed at us like she'd just solved world peace, then excused herself to find more wine, leaving us standing together in uncomfortable silence. So, Benji said finally. These weddings, huh? Yeah, I agreed. Not really my scene. Mine either. My mom guilt-tripped me into coming. Said it would be good networking. He made air quotes around the word networking. I'd been hiding by the food for the past 20 minutes. I laughed, genuinely this time. That's actually a solid strategy. Right? Nobody bothers you if you look like you're intensely focused on selecting the perfect canopy. He demonstrated by studying a tray of shrimp cocktail like it contained the secrets of the universe. So how do you know the happy couple? Annalise is my sister. His eyes widened slightly. Oh. Well, she seems nice. You don't have to pretend, I said. I know my sister can be a lot. I haven't actually met her, he admitted. I've just been watching from a distance and trying not to spill anything on this suit my mom made me wear. We talked for a few more minutes, easy conversation about nothing important. He told me about his work in software development, and when he asked what I did, I told him the truth. He didn't flinch or change the subject or offer me fake sympathy. He just said, "That must be exhausting work," and moved on. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a gift. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice announced over the sound system. Dinner is now being served in the grand ballroom. Please find your assigned tables. That's my cue to find my mom before she sends out a search party, Benji said. It was really nice talking to you, Carol. You too. He smiled and disappeared into the crowd moving toward the ballroom. I checked my seating assignment on the little card I'd been given earlier. Table 18. Not the family table, of course. Not even close. Table 18 was in the back corner, near the kitchen doors. At least I'd be close to the exits. The grand ballroom had been transformed yet again. The ceremony chairs were gone, replaced by round tables draped in ivory linens. Each table held a centerpiece of white roses, orchids, and cascading greenery that must have cost a fortune. Crystal glasses caught the light from multiple chandeliers. Gold-rimmed china plates sat at each place setting. It looked like something out of a magazine, perfect, pristine, and completely intimidating. I found table 18 tucked in the back corner, just as I'd expected. My table mates were already seated, a mix of distant relatives I'd met maybe twice in my life and what looked like some of Jonathan's extended family members who'd flown in from California. Nobody I knew. Nobody who knew me. Hi, I said, taking my assigned seat between an elderly woman with elaborate jewelry and a middle-aged man who was already on his phone. The elderly woman glanced at me. Are you with the bride or groom? Bride. I'm her sister. Her eyebrows rose. Oh. I didn't realize Annalise had a sister. She never mentioned you. Of course she hadn't. Dinner service began with a first course of seared scallops on a bed of microgreens. I picked at mine, watching the room. The head table, elevated on a platform so everyone could see the wedding party, glowed with candlelight and laughter. Annalise sat in the center like a princess, Jonathan beside her, their parents flanking them on either side. My parents looked happier than I'd seen them in years. My father kept putting his arm around my mother's shoulders. She kept dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, overwhelmed with joy at her daughter's success. Their successful daughter. The one who'd made them proud. The main course arrived, filet mignon with truffle butter, roasted vegetables, and some kind of potato dish that was probably called something fancy in French. It was delicious. Everything was delicious. I tried to focus on that, on the good food and the beautiful room, instead of the hollow ache in my chest. Excuse me, is this seat taken? I looked up to find Benji standing there with his plate, gesturing to an empty chair at our table. I thought you were sitting with your mom. I said. I was, but she's at a table full of her college friends and they're all talking about people I don't know from 40 years ago. I saw you over here and figured maybe you'd want company. He looked uncertain. But if you'd rather. No, please, sit, I said, perhaps too eagerly. The elderly woman next to me had turned her attention back to her dinner companion, and the man on my other side was still absorbed in his phone. Having someone to actually talk to sounded like a gift. Benji sat down and immediately looked relieved. Thank you. I'm really bad at these things. Big social events where everyone knows everyone except me. You and me both, I said. We ate in companionable silence for a moment before he asked, so what's it like having Annalise as a sister? That must have been interesting growing up. I considered lying, giving him the sanitized version where we were close and supportive and all the things sisters were supposed to be. But something about Benji made me want to tell the truth. Honestly, growing up with her was like living in someone's shadow. She was always the smart one, the accomplished one, the one everyone paid attention to. I was just there. That sounds lonely, he said simply. It was. I took a sip of wine. Still is, sometimes. But that's family, right? Complicated. My older brother is a neurosurgeon, Benji said. Married to another doctor, 2 perfect kids, house in the suburbs. My parents introduce me as, this is Benjamin, he works with computers. Like it's something they have to apologize for. At least computers sounds more impressive than cleaning bathrooms, I said, then immediately wanted to take it back. Why did I say that? But Benji just laughed. I don't know, bathrooms are pretty essential. You can live without software. You can't really live without functioning plumbing. I smiled, the tension in my shoulders releasing. That's a good point. We talked through the rest of dinner, easy conversation that flowed naturally. He told me about a disastrous coding project at work. I told him about the time a celebrity guest had accused me of stealing her jewelry, which turned out to be in her suitcase the whole time. We laughed about awkward family dynamics and the particular stress of formal events where you're supposed to know which fork to use. For the first time all day, I could breathe. Like maybe this wedding wouldn't be completely unbearable. Like maybe I'd even found something good in it, a conversation with someone who saw me as a person, not as the disappointing sister or the poor relation or the cleaning lady. The servers cleared our plates and began setting up for dessert. At the head table, Annalise was laughing at something Jonathan's mother said, her hand resting on her new husband's arm. She looked radiant, genuinely happy. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe the worst was over. Maybe I could get through the toasts and the cake cutting and the dancing, and then go home to my apartment and forget about all of this until the next family obligation rolled around. Ladies and gentlemen, the DJ's voice boomed through the sound system. It's now time for our evening toasts. We'll begin with the maid of honor, followed by the best man, and then the bride herself has a few words she'd like to share. Benji leaned over. This is always my favorite part of weddings. Either it's really heartfelt, or it's a total disaster. Either way, it's entertaining. I smiled, settling back in my chair. From here, tucked away at table 18 in the back corner, I could watch without being seen. I could survive this. I had no idea what was coming. The maid of honor went first, one of Annalise's law school friends, someone named Quentin who I'd never met. She told charming stories about study sessions and mock trials, about how Annalise had always been destined for greatness. The room applauded politely. The best man followed, Jonathan's college roommate, with funny anecdotes about terrible dates and worse haircuts. More laughter, more applause. Standard wedding toast fare. Then the DJ announced, and now, the bride herself would like to say a few words. Annalise stood gracefully, her dress shimmering in the chandelier light. A waiter handed her a microphone. She tapped it once, the sound echoing through the ballroom, and the room fell silent. 300 guests turned their attention to her. She was glowing. This was her moment, her stage, her audience. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, she began, her voice warm and confident. Jonathan and I are so grateful to be surrounded by the people we love most. She paused, scanning the room with that practiced smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Her gaze landed on our parents' table, on the Hartfords, on her bridesmaids, and finally, for just a fraction of a second, on me. Something in her expression shifted. A glint in her eye that I recognized from childhood, the look she got right before she did something that would make her the center of attention while making me feel small. I want to especially thank my family, she continued. My parents, who gave me every opportunity to succeed. Who invested in my education, who supported my dreams, who never let me settle for anything less than excellence. Our mother dabbed at her eyes again. Our father beamed with pride. And I want to thank my sister, Carol, for making the trip today. Annalise's tone shifted, taking on an edge that most people probably missed. But I heard it. Carol, where are you? Stand up, don't be shy. My stomach dropped. Every head in the ballroom turned, searching for me. Slowly, mechanically, I stood, my legs shaking. There she is. Annalise pointed at me with her champagne glass. Everyone, my older sister Carol. Let's give her a round of applause for coming all the way from Queens. The applause felt like mockery. I stood there, frozen, as 300 pairs of eyes stared at me. You know, Carol and I have very different approaches to life, Annalise continued, and my blood turned to ice. While I was at Yale studying constitutional law, Carol was finding herself. Weren't you, sis? Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I wanted to sit down, to disappear, but I couldn't move. And now, while I'm practicing law and marrying into the Hartford family, she gestured to Jonathan and his parents with a flourish, Carol has found her true calling. She works at the Grandview Hotel. In housekeeping. She said the word housekeeping with emphasis, like it was the punchline to a joke. More laughter. Louder this time. That's right, my sister cleans hotel rooms for a living. Scrubs toilets, changes sheets, vacuums carpets. For minimum wage. Annalise's smile was bright, her tone was light, but her words cut like knives. Unlike me, who found a man who values ambition and success, Carol found her passion in, what do they call it? Hospitality services? The ballroom erupted in laughter. Real laughter now, not just nervous chuckling. People were genuinely amused by my humiliation. Annalise, I started, but my voice came out as a whisper that nobody could hear over the noise. But you know what? Annalise raised her glass higher. I admire Carol's dedication. Someone has to clean up after successful people, right? Someone has to do the jobs that the rest of us are too educated, too ambitious, too driven to do. My mother's voice cut through the laughter from the head table. Oh, Annalise, you're terrible. But she was laughing too, her face flushed with wine and amusement. Carol's doing the best she can with her life choices. We can't all be Yale graduates. The laughter grew louder. Someone at a nearby table actually applauded. Well, someone has to clean the toilets at fancy hotels, someone called out from the crowd, and more laughter followed. Benji's hand was on my arm, steadying me. Sit down, he whispered urgently. Just sit down. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, standing there in front of 300 people while my sister turned my life into entertainment and my mother joined in the mockery. I mean, at least she has job security, Annalise continued, clearly encouraged by the laughter. The world will always need housekeepers. No college degree required, no ambition necessary. Just a strong back and a willingness to get on your knees and scrub. The image she painted was deliberately demeaning. I could see people at nearby tables whispering to each other, some looking uncomfortable now, but others still smiling, still laughing. My sister Carol, everyone. Annalise raised her glass in a toast. Proving that not everyone in a family needs to be successful. Someone has to be the cautionary tale, right? The one who shows us what happens when you don't apply yourself, when you don't have dreams or goals or any real ambition. My father was shaking his head, but he was smiling. Like this was all just good fun, harmless sibling ribbing. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. I wouldn't let them see me break. So here's to Carol, Annalise said, her voice ringing through the ballroom. May she always find work in luxury hotels, serving people who are actually making something of their lives. Cheers. The ballroom erupted in applause and laughter. Glasses clinked. People cheered. My sister beamed, soaking in the attention, the validation, the cruel entertainment she'd provided at my expense. I was halfway to sitting down, my face burning with humiliation, my hands trembling, when I heard it. The scrape of a chair. It cut through the noise like a blade. Sharp, deliberate, commanding. The laughter began to die down, conversations trailing off mid-sentence as heads turned toward the source. Spencer Hartford stood at the head table. Not just stood, rose with authority that made the entire room fall silent. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his posture, in the set of his jaw, that made even the waiters stop moving. He didn't ask for the microphone. He simply walked toward Annalise with measured, purposeful steps, his footfalls echoing in the sudden quiet. 300 guests held their breath. Annalise's smile faltered. "Mr. Hartford?" "Spencer?" "I was just..." He held out his hand. Not aggressive, but absolute. "Give me the microphone." She handed it over, confusion flickering across her perfect face. Jonathan started to stand, but his father shook his head once. "Sit." Spencer adjusted the microphone with the same precision he probably used in boardrooms. He tested it with a soft tap, and the sound resonated through the speakers like a gavel. The room was completely silent now. You could hear people breathing. "I need to say something," he began, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "And I need everyone in this room to listen very carefully." Every eye was on him. Even the kitchen staff had gone quiet. 7 years ago, Spencer continued, I was in New York for a series of meetings. We'd just closed a major acquisition, one of the biggest deals of my career. Over $2 billion. I was staying at the Grandview Hotel, celebrating with my team, working late, barely sleeping. He looked across the room, and when his gaze landed on me, something in my chest tightened. I'd been having chest pains for weeks. Ignored them, of course. Too busy, too important, too many people depending on me. That's what successful people do, right? We push through. We ignore warning signs because we have empires to build. A few uncomfortable shifts in seats. People glancing at each other. On the third night of my stay, at approximately 2:47 in the morning, I had a massive heart attack in my hotel suite. His voice remained steady, but something raw crept into it. I was alone. My team had gone to their rooms hours earlier. I collapsed in the bathroom, unable to reach my phone, unable to call for help. Eleanor Hartford had her hand over her mouth. Jonathan looked pale. I should have died on that marble floor, Spencer said. The doctors told me later that I had maybe 10 minutes before the damage would have been irreversible. Maybe 15 before I would have been dead. He paused, letting that sink in. The silence was absolute. A housekeeper found me during her rounds. His gaze locked onto mine. She wasn't supposed to be on my floor. She'd switched shifts with a colleague whose daughter was sick. She was doing someone else's job, working an overnight shift after already working all day. My breath caught. I remembered that night. God, I remembered. Her name was Carol Reed, Spencer said, his voice growing stronger. That woman standing right there, the one your family just humiliated in front of 300 people for having the audacity to clean hotel rooms for a living. Absolute silence. Not a cough, not a whisper, not a breath. She found me unconscious, unresponsive, turning blue. And instead of panicking, instead of running to get help first, instead of worrying about protocol or liability or any of the 1,000 things that might go through someone's head, she immediately began CPR. His voice cracked slightly. She called 911 while performing chest compressions. She talked to me even though I couldn't respond, telling me to hold on, telling me help was coming, telling me I was going to be okay. She kept me alive for 7 minutes until the paramedics arrived. Tears were streaming down Eleanor's face. Other guests looked stunned, some visibly emotional. The paramedics told me later that without her intervention, I would have died. The doctors confirmed it. She saved my life. Spencer's jaw tightened. After I recovered, I tracked her down. I wanted to thank her properly, to reward her, to do something to show my gratitude. You know what she asked for? He looked directly at Annalise now, and my sister had gone completely pale. Nothing. She asked for nothing. She said she was just doing her job. When I insisted, and I did insist, she asked if I could donate to a scholarship fund for hospitality workers who wanted to advance their careers. Not for herself. For others. Spencer's voice hardened. That's the woman you just mocked. That's the woman your mother called someone who cleans up after successful people. That's the woman you turned into entertainment for your wedding guests. My mother's face had lost all color. She looked like she might be sick. Carol Reed has more character in her little finger than most people in this room have in their entire bodies, Spencer continued, his voice ringing with conviction. She saved my life without expecting anything in return. She works hard at an honest job. She treats people with dignity and respect. And she showed up here today to support her sister's wedding, despite knowing exactly how her family treats her. He turned to address the entire ballroom now, his voice powerful. I've built a company worth $40 billion. I've sat across tables from presidents and prime ministers. I've negotiated with the most powerful people in the world. And I can count on one hand the number of people who have shown me genuine human decency when it mattered most. His gaze found mine again, and I saw something in his expression that looked like respect. Carol Reed is one of them. She's worth more than all the degrees and pedigrees and bank accounts in this room combined. And anyone who can't see that is a fool. The silence that followed was deafening. Spencer set the microphone down on the nearest table with a soft click that somehow felt final. Spencer looked at Annalise, then at my mother, his disappointment palpable. Congratulations on your marriage, Annalise, he said quietly. I hope you learn something from this day, though I suspect you won't. Then he turned and walked away from the head table. Not toward his seat, but toward the exit. Eleanor stood immediately, following her husband without a word. Jonathan sat frozen, his face a mixture of shock and something that looked like shame. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. 300 people who moments ago had been laughing at my expense now sat looking uncomfortable, guilty, horrified. Some stared at their plates. Others stared at me. Several were already pulling out their phones. I could see the glow of screens lighting up faces around the room. I stood there at table 18, tears now flowing freely down my face. But they weren't tears of humiliation anymore. They were something else entirely, relief, vindication, disbelief that someone had actually stood up for me. Benji touched my arm gently. Hey, he said softly. You okay? I nodded, unable to speak. At the head table, Annalise still held her champagne glass, but her hand was shaking. The perfect composure she'd maintained all day had shattered. She looked at Jonathan, who wouldn't meet her gaze. She looked at our parents, who both seemed to have aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. I didn't, Annalise started, her voice breaking. I was just joking. It was supposed to be funny. Sister banter. But no one was laughing now. Whispered conversations erupted around the ballroom like small fires. Phones were being pulled from purses and pockets. I saw flashes going off. People had been recording. Of course they had. This was exactly the kind of moment that went viral. Carol. My mother's voice cut through the murmurs. She was standing now, making her way toward my table, her emerald gown suddenly looking garish under the chandelier lights. Carol, sweetheart, I didn't know. We didn't know about what you did. You never told us. I found my voice finally, and it was steadier than I expected. You never asked, Mom. You never asked what I did at work, or what my life was like, or if anything meaningful ever happened to me. You just assumed that because I clean hotel rooms, my life must be meaningless. That's not fair. Isn't it? Something inside me was shifting, expanding, something that had been compressed for years suddenly breaking free. You just laughed while Annalise mocked me in front of everyone. You called me someone who cleans up after successful people. You didn't know about Spencer Hartford because you never cared enough to ask about my life. My father had joined us now, his face flushed. Carol, your mother didn't mean. Yes, she did. I looked at both of them, really looked at them, maybe for the first time in years. You both did. You've been telling me my entire life that I'm not good enough, that I'm the disappointment, that I should be more like Annalise. And I believed you. I actually believed that my worth was measured by my salary and my job title. We're your parents, my mother said, her voice wavering. We love you. Do you? The question hung in the air between us. Because love isn't supposed to feel like this. Love isn't supposed to make you feel small and worthless. Love isn't supposed to turn your struggles into punchlines. Annalise appeared beside our parents, mascara starting to streak down her perfect face. Carol, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, I was just trying to be entertaining. It's my wedding day, I wanted people to laugh. At my expense, I finished. You wanted people to laugh at my expense. Just like you always have. That's not true. Yes, it is. My voice was getting stronger with each word. My entire life, you've made yourself look better by making me look worse. The smart sister and the dumb one. The successful one and the failure. The one who made something of herself and the one who just cleans toilets. Benji stood up beside me, a quiet show of support. I glanced at him, grateful. I saved a man's life, I said, the words feeling strange and powerful in my mouth. I worked a double shift, I was exhausted, and when I found him dying on his bathroom floor, I didn't think about myself or my job or what people would think. I just helped him because that's what you do when someone needs help. We know that now, my father started. But you didn't care before, I interrupted. When you thought I was just a housekeeper, just someone who scrubs toilets, my value to this family was zero. Now that you know a billionaire owes me his life, suddenly I matter. The truth of it hung between us, ugly and undeniable. Around us, I could hear snippets of conversation from nearby tables. Did she really save his life? Oh my God, this is insane. Someone's already posting the video. That poor woman. I feel terrible for laughing. Jonathan had finally left the head table and was approaching our group, his face pale. Carol, I had no idea. I've stayed at the Grandview dozens of times. You might have cleaned my room. I might have walked past you in the hallway and never even seen you. Most people don't, I said simply. Housekeepers are invisible until something goes wrong. My father wants to speak with you, Jonathan said. Before he leaves. He's waiting in the lobby. I looked at my family, my mother with tears streaming down her face, my father looking older than I'd ever seen him, my sister with her ruined makeup and shaking hands. They all looked small suddenly. Diminished. I need to go, I said. Carol, please, Annalise reached for my arm. I stepped back. I came here today to support you. To be your sister. And you humiliated me in front of everyone you wanted to impress. That tells me everything I need to know about what I mean to you. It doesn't have to be like this, my mother pleaded. You're right, I agreed. It doesn't. But that's your choice to make, not mine. I'm done shrinking myself to make you feel bigger. I walked out of that ballroom with my head held higher than it had been all day. Benji walked beside me through the ornate hallway, a quiet presence that I was grateful for. Behind us, I could hear the eruption of voices, shocked conversations, frantic whispers, my mother calling my name one more time. I didn't turn around. Spencer Hartford was waiting in the plaza's ornate lobby, standing near one of the massive flower arrangements with his wife. When he saw me approach, something softened in his expression. Carol, he said simply. Mr. Hartford, I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem. You don't need to thank me. I should have done that years ago. He glanced back toward the ballroom. I've known your sister for 8 months, through the engagement. Met your family several times. Not once did anyone mention you. When I heard Annalise had a sister, I asked about you. Your mother said you were doing your own thing and changed the subject. Eleanor stepped forward, her eyes still red. That was one of the most horrifying things I've ever witnessed. I'm so sorry we didn't stop it sooner. It's not your fault, I said. No, but we sat there for the first few seconds like everyone else, before Spencer realized what was happening. She shook her head. The way your own mother joined in. Spencer pulled a business card from his jacket pocket. I meant what I said in there. You have more integrity than most people I've met in my entire life. If you ever want to change, call me. Hartford Tech could use someone with your character. I don't care about degrees or experience. I care about the quality of a person. I took the card with trembling hands. I don't know anything about technology. Neither did half my best employees when I hired them. What they had was dedication, honesty, and the ability to see other people as human beings. You have all three. He paused. But if you want to stay at the Grandview, I understand that too. There's honor in any work done well. I need to think about everything, I admitted. Of course. He squeezed my shoulder gently. We're leaving. This isn't something I want to be part of anymore. But please, call me this week. Even if you just want to talk. They left, and I stood in the lobby wondering how my life had just changed so completely in the span of 15 minutes. Benji was still there, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. Do you want me to drive you home? He asked. I don't think you should be alone right now. I drove here, I said automatically, then realized I was shaking too hard to safely operate a vehicle. But yes. Yes, please. Thank you. We collected my car keys from the valet, and Benji helped me into his sensible Honda Civic. As we pulled away from the plaza, I looked back once and saw people streaming out of the building, many of them on their phones, animated conversations visible even from a distance. My phone started buzzing before we even hit the first traffic light. Text messages poured in from numbers I didn't recognize. Notifications from social media accounts I barely used. The video had already spread. Don't look at those yet, Benji advised gently. Just, take a breath first. He drove me to Queens, following my directions to my apartment building. When we pulled up, I almost didn't want to get out. Inside, I'd have to process everything that had just happened. Out here, in Benji's car, I could exist in a strange limbo where I could pretend none of this had really happened. Thank you, I said finally. For sitting with me. For walking out with me. For driving me home. You didn't have to do any of that. Yeah, I did, he said simply. What happened in there was wrong. Someone needed to be on your side. I gave him my number before I got out, and he promised to text me tomorrow to check in. I watched him drive away before climbing the stairs to my apartment, each step heavier than the last. Mrs. Chen's door opened before I could get my key in the lock. Carol? You're home early. What happened? She took one look at my face and pulled me inside her apartment. Sit. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Annalisa's speech, about the laughter, about Spencer Hartford standing up and revealing the truth I'd never told anyone in my family. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting, her weathered hand holding mine. I knew you were special, she said when I finished. I knew it the moment I met you. That family of yours, they're fools. Blind fools who can't see what's right in front of them. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Finally, I looked at it. Text messages from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. From high school acquaintances. From Destiny at work, girl. Call me right now. Everyone is losing their minds. The video is everywhere. I opened social media with shaking hands. The video was viral. Actually viral. Millions of views already. The comments were overwhelming. This man is a hero for defending her. Imagine being so cruel to your own sister at your wedding. The mother joining in made me sick. That poor woman. Housekeepers are essential workers who deserve respect. This video broke my heart. I'm crying. The way he described her saving his life, she's incredible. Some comments were directed at Annalise and my mother, and they weren't kind. People had found their social media accounts. Annalise had already made everything private, but screenshots were circulating. Comments she'd made in the past about lazy people and welfare queens were being shared alongside the wedding video. My mother's Facebook was being flooded with angry messages. I should have felt satisfaction. Some part of me did. But mostly I just felt exhausted. You should sleep, Mrs. Chen said. Tomorrow will be a new day, and you'll need your strength. She was right, but sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay on my pull-out sofa bed, watching shadows from passing headlights cross my ceiling, replaying the entire night in my head. Spencer Hartford's words. Annalise's face when she realized what was happening. The feeling of walking out of that ballroom with my head held high. For the first time in my life, someone had seen me. Really seen me. And defended me. That meant something. I woke up the next morning to 247 text messages, 89 missed calls, and a voicemail inbox so full it couldn't accept any more messages. My phone had died sometime around 3 a.m., and charging it felt like opening Pandora's box. Mrs. Chen knocked on my door at 8:30 with coffee and bagels. You need to eat something before you face whatever's waiting for you out there. We sat at my tiny folding card table, and I finally listened to some of the voicemails. My mother's voice, shaking, Carol, please call me. We need to talk about this. People are saying terrible things. Please. My father, formal and stiff, Carol, this has gotten out of hand. The video is everywhere. We need to discuss how to handle this as a family. Annalise, crying, Carol, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean, everything is falling apart. Jonathan won't talk to me. Please call me back. But there were other messages too. Destiny from work, girl, you're famous. And the hotel is blowing up. Mr. Peterson wants to talk to you ASAP. I think it's good news. An unknown number, Ms. Reed, this is Jennifer Cole from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show to tell your story. Another unknown number, Carol, this is Marcus Reed, your second cousin on your father's side. We met at Thanksgiving 5 years ago. I just want to say that what happened to you was wrong, and I'm sorry the family treated you that way. I deleted most of them without listening. I wasn't ready for any of it yet. Work was in 3 hours. I had a shift starting at noon. Part of me wanted to call in sick, to hide in my apartment until the internet moved on to the next viral moment. But hiding had never solved anything. I showered, put on my uniform, the same burgundy polo and black pants I wore every shift, and took the subway to Manhattan. The Grandview Hotel was buzzing when I arrived. Literally buzzing. The lobby was fuller than usual, and I could see guests on their phones, some of them pointing and whispering as I walked through. The front desk staff stared at me with wide eyes. Carol. Destiny practically ran across the lobby to grab me. Oh my God, you're here. Have you seen the news? Have you checked Twitter? You're trending. I saw some of it, I admitted. Some. Girl, all of it. The video has 20 million views. 20 million. People are writing articles about you. That actress, you know, the one from that show we watch, she posted about you. She called you a hero. Mr. Peterson, the hotel manager, appeared from his office. Ms. Reed. My office, please. My stomach dropped. This was it. I was going to be fired for bringing attention to the hotel, for being unprofessional, for something. But when I sat down in his office, Mr. Peterson was smiling. In my 30 years in hospitality, I've never seen anything like this, he said. Our phones have been ringing off the hook all morning. Guests wanting to book rooms specifically because of you. News outlets wanting interviews. And Spencer Hartford himself called me at 7 this morning. I braced myself. He told me the full story of what you did for him 7 years ago. How you never asked for recognition, never told anyone, just went back to work the next day like it was nothing. Mr. Peterson leaned forward. Carol, why didn't you ever mention this? Because it was my job, I said simply. I saw someone who needed help, and I helped them. That's exactly what Mr. Hartford said you'd say. He smiled wider. Which is why I'm pleased to offer you a promotion. Guest Services Manager. You'll be overseeing both housekeeping and front desk operations. It comes with a significant raise. We're talking $45,000 a year to start, and full benefits including dental. I stared at him. Mr. Peterson, I don't have a college degree. I don't have management experience. You have 9 years of experience at one of the finest hotels in New York. You have a work ethic that's impeccable. And you have integrity that can't be taught. He slid a folder across his desk. Spencer Hartford also established a scholarship fund in your name for hospitality workers who want to advance their careers. He started it with a donation of $500,000. My hands shook as I opened the folder. It was all there, in official letterhead. The Carol Reed Hospitality Excellence Scholarship. This is too much, I whispered. It's not enough, Mr. Peterson countered. But it's a start. What do you say? Will you accept the promotion? I thought about Mrs. Chen and her coffee and her unwavering belief in me. About Destiny and the other housekeepers who'd become my real family over the years. About the subway rides home with aching feet and the satisfaction of a room cleaned perfectly. Yes, I said. Yes, I'll accept. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Destiny screamed and hugged me when I told her. The other housekeepers threw a little celebration in the break room with vending machine snacks and warm soda. My new office, I had an office, was small but it had a window and a door that closed. That evening, sitting in that office filling out paperwork, my phone rang. Benji. Hey, he said. I just wanted to check in. See how you're doing with everything. I got promoted, I said, still not quite believing it. Guest Services Manager. That's amazing. Congratulations. You deserve it. Do I? I asked honestly. I've been doing the same job for 9 years. Nothing changed about me between yesterday and today. That's not true, Benji said gently. Yesterday, people couldn't see you. Today, they can. That's not nothing. We talked for almost an hour. About the viral video, about the promotion, about his own job and his difficult relationship with his parents. It was easy, natural, like we'd known each other for years instead of just meeting yesterday. Would you want to have dinner sometime? He asked finally. Like, an actual date, not just refuge from a terrible wedding? I smiled. I'd like that. After we hung up, I sat in my new office and let myself really feel it. Not just the promotion or the attention or even the vindication. But something deeper. For the first time in my adult life, I mattered. Not because a billionaire had defended me, but because I'd defended myself. I'd stood up to my family. I'd told the truth about how they'd made me feel. I'd walked away. That was the real transformation. Not the job title or the salary. But the knowledge that I didn't need their approval anymore. Over the next few weeks, things continued to shift. The video eventually faded from trending status, but its impact lingered. I still got recognized occasionally. Someone would stop me on the street or in the hotel and say, "You're that woman from the wedding video. What you did was amazing." I learned to smile and say thank you, but the recognition didn't define me anymore. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the Grandview Hotel watching my team handle the afternoon check-in rush. The front desk staff moved with practiced efficiency. The housekeeping supervisor, my old position, now filled by Rosa who'd been promoted from within, coordinated room assignments on her tablet. Everything ran smoothly, like a well-oiled machine. I'd moved out of my studio apartment in Queens 3 months ago. My new place was still modest, a 1-bedroom in a better neighborhood with a kitchen that had actual counter space and a bathroom where the ceiling didn't leak. I could afford it now. I could afford a lot of things. New work clothes that weren't worn at the seams. Groceries that included fresh vegetables instead of just whatever was on sale. A small emergency fund that meant I could breathe a little easier at night. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was internal. Ms. Reed? One of the new front desk clerks, a young woman named Maya, approached me nervously. There's a guest asking for you specifically. A Mr. Hartford? I smiled. Send him to my office, please. And Maya? You don't need to be so formal. Carol is fine. Spencer Hartford appeared in my office doorway a few minutes later, carrying a briefcase and wearing a smile. We'd had coffee together twice in the past 6 months, and he'd called several times to check on how things were going. Not out of obligation, but genuine interest. Carol, good to see you. He sat in the chair across from my desk. I wanted to give you an update on the scholarship fund. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. We've awarded 15 scholarships so far. Housekeepers, kitchen staff, maintenance workers, all people working in hospitality who wanted to advance their careers but couldn't afford the training or education. 3 of them have already completed certification programs. 1 just got promoted to hotel operations manager in Boston. I looked through the applications and success stories, my throat tight. This is incredible. It's your legacy, Spencer said simply. Your name is opening doors for people who remind me of you. People who work hard, who have integrity, who just need someone to see them. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know what you've started. He paused. Also, my offer still stands. If you ever want to transition to Hartford Tech, there's a position in our employee services division with your name on it. I appreciate that, but I'm happy here, I said honestly. This is where I belong. At least for now. He nodded, understanding. The right choice is always the one that feels right to you. Not the one that looks best to other people. After he left, I had a meeting with Mr. Peterson about updating our staff training program. Then I walked through the hotel, checking in with different departments, listening to concerns, solving small problems before they became big ones. This was my job now, seeing people, hearing them, making sure they knew they mattered. In the evening, I met Benji at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village. We'd been dating for 4 months now, taking things slowly, building something real. He was waiting at the table when I arrived, 2 glasses of wine already ordered. Long day? He asked as I sat down. Good day, I corrected. Busy, but good. We talked through dinner about everything and nothing. His latest project at work, my plans to implement a mentorship program at the hotel, a movie we both wanted to see. Easy conversation, comfortable silences. A relationship where you didn't have to perform or impress. You could just be. I got a call from my mother today, I said over dessert. First time in 3 months. Benji's expression was careful. How did that go? She wanted to meet for coffee. Said she's been in therapy, working through some things. I pushed tiramisu around my plate. She apologized. Actually apologized, without any qualifications or excuses. Said she's been a terrible mother to me and she wants to try to make it right. What did you say? I said maybe. Someday. But not yet. I met his gaze. I'm not ready to let them back in. Maybe I never will be. And I'm okay with that. Good, Benji said firmly. They don't get access to you just because they're your family. They have to earn it. That was what I loved about him. He understood that family wasn't an obligation. It was something that should be earned through love and respect and genuine care. My phone buzzed with a text. Destiny, new housekeeper started today. Sweet kid, reminds me of you 9 years ago. Nervous and trying so hard. Can you stop by tomorrow and meet her? I typed back, absolutely. I'll take her to lunch, my treat. This was the part of my job I loved most. Being the person for others that I'd wished existed for me. Seeing the invisible people. Telling them they mattered. Opening doors. Annalise had sent me an email last week. Not through social media or a text, but an actual email with the subject line, "I'm sorry." I hadn't opened it yet. Maybe I would someday. Maybe I wouldn't. The choice was mine, and that felt powerful. The video from the wedding had eventually faded from viral status, replaced by newer scandals and sensations. But its impact lingered. I still got recognized occasionally. Someone would stop me on the street or in the hotel and say, "You're that woman from the wedding video. You're amazing." I'd learned to smile and say thank you, but the recognition didn't define me. What defined me was the work I did every day. The people I helped. The life I'd built on my own terms. "What are you thinking about?" Benji asked, studying my face. "How different everything is now," I said. 6 months ago, I was standing at that wedding being the smallest person in the room. Like I didn't matter. Like my life was something to be ashamed of. And now? Now I know better. I smiled. I know that my work has value. That I have value. That I don't need anyone's permission to take up space in the world or to be proud of who I am. He reached across the table and took my hand. You never needed permission. You just needed to see what everyone else should have seen all along. We left the restaurant and walked through the West Village, hand in hand, talking about plans for next weekend. The city lights reflected off wet pavement from an earlier rain. People rushed past us with their own lives, their own stories, their own struggles. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Arriving at the plaza in her 14-year-old Camry, wearing a dress she'd worn a dozen times before, convinced she didn't belong. Convinced she wasn't enough. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth. Who'd saved a man's life and never bragged about it. Who'd stood up to her family and walked away with her dignity intact. Who'd turned a moment of humiliation into an opportunity for growth. Someone who cleaned hotel rooms and managed people and helped others find their own worth. Someone who didn't need a fancy title or a big salary or her family's approval to know she mattered. Someone who was enough, exactly as she was. The realization didn't come with fireworks or dramatic music. It was quiet, settled, certain. Like finally coming home after a long journey. I was enough. I'd always been enough. And anyone who couldn't see that didn't deserve a place in my life. That knowledge, more than any vindication or revenge or viral video, felt like true victory. We reached Benji's car, and he opened the door for me. "You know what I admire most about you?" he said. "What?" "You didn't let them break you. Even when they tried. Even when they wanted to. You stayed exactly who you are." I kissed him then, standing on a street corner in the West Village with the city moving around us. When we pulled apart, I was smiling. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For seeing me." He smiled back. "That's easy. You're kind of hard to miss." As he drove me home, I looked out the window at the city I loved. Somewhere in Manhattan, my family was dealing with the consequences of their actions. Annalise's wedding had become infamous for all the wrong reasons. My mother's social standing had taken a hit. My father had lost clients who didn't want to be associated with that family from the video. I didn't take pleasure in their pain. I didn't want revenge or vindication or apologies anymore. I just wanted to live my life. To do my work. To help people. To be happy. And for the first time in my life, I was. Mrs. Chen was waiting on her stoop when I got home, like she somehow always knew when I needed to talk. "Good date?" she asked. "Good date," I confirmed, sitting beside her. "Your mother called me today," she said casually. "Asked if I thought you'd ever forgive her." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give when you're ready, if you're ever ready. And that she should focus less on being forgiven and more on being better." I smiled. "That's good advice. I'm full of it." She patted my hand. "You've come a long way, Carol Reed. That girl who moved in next door 3 years ago was so small, so scared of taking up space. Look at you now. I had a good teacher. You had a good heart, she corrected. I just reminded you it was there. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people walk by, listening to the sounds of the city settling into night. The subway rumbled past. Someone was cooking something that smelled like garlic and tomatoes. A car alarm went off 2 blocks away. It was ordinary. It was beautiful. It was mine. You know what the best part is? I said finally. What's that? I don't need them anymore. I don't need their approval or their validation or their love. I have my own life. My own people. My own worth. Mrs. Chen smiled. Now that's victory. She was right. That was victory. Not the viral video or the promotion or the scholarship fund in my name. Those were nice, but they weren't what mattered. What mattered was that I'd found myself. I'd stood up. I'd walked away. I'd built a life that was mine. And I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. That night, lying in my bed in my new apartment with its working bathroom and proper kitchen, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The humiliation at Annalise's wedding had felt like an ending at the time. The worst moment of my life. But it had actually been a beginning. Spencer Hartford's defense of me had given me permission to defend myself. To believe I was worth defending. And that belief had changed everything. I pulled out my phone and opened the email from Annalise that I'd been avoiding. Just to see. Just to know. Dear Carol, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because the video went viral or because people are angry at me or because Jonathan and I are in counseling trying to save our marriage. I'm sorry because I hurt you. Because I've been hurting you for years and I was too selfish to see it. You didn't deserve any of it. You deserved a sister who celebrated you, who supported you, who saw your worth. Instead, you got me. I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see you now. And I'm sorry it took humiliating you at my wedding for me to open my eyes. I love you, even though I've done a terrible job of showing it. I hope someday you can believe that. Love, Annalise. I read it twice. Then I closed my phone and set it on my nightstand. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe I'd even forgive her. Maybe we'd find a way to be sisters again, different than before but still something. Or maybe not. Either way, I'd be okay. Because I didn't need her anymore to know who I was. I was Carol Reed. I saved lives. I managed people. I helped others find their worth. I loved and was loved. I worked hard and lived honestly and treated people with dignity and respect. And that was more than enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.